Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Amita Rari, and coming up in today's newscast, Israel at the crossroads, navigating multiple fronts and political shifts in 2024. What does the new year have in store? The Mossad chief granting approval to pursue Qatar's hostage release proposal sparks optimism amidst complex negotiations with Hamas. ILTV summarizing 2023. So what were the top positive stories from Israel in this year? Day 86 of the war in Gaza, IDF troops are pushing deeper into remaining Hamas strongholds in central and southern Gaza amid heavy fire. Achievements included the capture of Hamas intelligence headquarters in Khan Yunis and an office used by terrorist leader Yahya Sinwar. And ILTV's Steve Leibovich has more.
IDF troops raided the Hamas intelligence headquarters in Khan Yunis, where Hamas leadership is believed to be hiding in underground bunkers. The ongoing Gaza operations are focused on Al-Barej, Nusirat, and Magasi in central Gaza and Khan Yunis in the southern part of the terrorist enclave. The overrun intelligence headquarters was responsible for all of Hamas activity in the Khan Yunis area. The IDF also located a command center belonging to the Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorist group in the same complex.
אנחנו בפעולה עצימה ברצועת עזה. היא תימשך תקופה ממושכת עד להשגת המטרות. היא מרוכזת כעת במרחב ח'אן יונס. ההישגים מדויקים, מרשימים, והתוצאות לא מאחרות להגיע.
Over the weekend, IDF troops demolished a hideout apartment belonging to Hamas Gaza leader Yahya Sinwar in northern Gaza, along with a large tunnel system underneath it. Sinwar continues to evade capture, as the IDF says it's closing in on him.
מצאנו מערכת מנהרות מאוד משמעותית של החמאס, מערכת של בכירים. היא מערכת עמוקה, הרבה יותר מהמערכות הקודמות. היא שונה, יש לה מעלית. According
to the IDF, the troops recovered very valuable intelligence materials from the site. During a press conference last night, Prime Minister Netanyahu said that the southern border with Egypt eventually will be held by Israel, and the war will take months to complete.
They deny the kidnapping of our children, the murder of our grandchildren, the rape of our daughters. The new Nazis we face today will stop at nothing to destroy civilization as we know it. The World Jewish Congress was created exactly for these times like this, so every Jew can fall asleep at night knowing they are safe in their own home. We are a voice for the Jewish people everywhere. We are the World Jewish Congress.
2023 has been a complex and eventful year for the State of Israel, and just before 2024 kicks in, we're joined by Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, Flora Hassan Nachum, to reflect on this past year and see what 2024 has in store for us. So, Flora, will 2024 be a year of, continuing war in Gaza and perhaps on other fronts?
It's just so sad and tragic that the year started off with so much promise, and it's ended up in such a terrible, tragic way. It's very difficult, really, to encapsulate everything that has happened in this year. We started the year in our third year of the Abraham Accords. The year continued, unfortunately, with a lot of internal divide, a new government that then brought upon itself a lot of internal divide, a lot of politicization by the opposition, and really culminated in a moment where I think that we were posing an existential danger to ourselves with the divisions in this country. And then all of a sudden the enemy reminds us that that's what really is the real enemy. The real enemy is outside and not within. And we're fighting a terrible guerrilla urban warfare, which is cruel, which has taken our innocence, which still keeps our hostages. And it really is a very difficult thing to encapsulate everything that's happened this year. And next year, I think if we're looking at the glass half full, we could perhaps see a different regime in Gaza, but we could also see a war with Lebanon.
Yes, and now you're leading me to another, government, to Israel one. Our government has led Israel for exactly 1 year, 2023. It seems much longer, and for the past 3 months was the addition of Benny Gantz's National Unity Party and his place in the war cabinet. Which government is likely to lead us in most of 2024? Is change inevitable, judging by the current mood of the nation, or do you see this continuing?
Well, I think we need to finish the war first. I don't think changing a government in the middle of the war is advisable, whether we like or we don't like the government. I think we have to let the people who are now managing the war complete the task if we're going to see an end to this quickly. But I do think that the day after the war, there's a lot of reckoning to be done with the current leadership, military and political alike. I think that there are layers of things that happened in order to get us to a situation where we couldn't defend our borders on that terrible October 7th. Why soldiers weren't listened to, why female soldiers weren't listened to, where the chain of command failed, where intelligence failed, and where the government failed. And so I believe that in 2024, inevitably, there will have to be an election, a national election.
Yes, now according to Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, there are as many as 7 hostile fronts now attacking Israel once the war is over. Is there another war that needs to be fought in 2024 in Lebanon? Not one answer, but your opinion.
Well, we're fighting Hezbollah, which essentially has taken over Lebanon. We're fighting Iran, essentially. We're all involved in this proxy war against Iran. And the war that needs to happen, but I doubt it's going to happen in an election year in the US, and an election year in so many other countries around the world, is the West, the free world, taking on Iran. Iran is the Hitler of today. And people have not woken up to that reality yet. Iran is the Hitler of today. And if we keep appeasing Iran or thinking that the real problem is Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis and Afghanistan and Iraq and everything else, we haven't dealt with the root of the problem, which is the mother of all Islamic regimes, jihadi regimes that want to take the entire world over and take us back 500 years to an ideology and a death cult. And until the world, the free world, and this is not Israel's battle alone, this is the entire free world, until they're ready to bang together the way that in the Second World War, the Allies, united to defeat Hitler, we're going to be having problems for many years to come. And I just hope everybody wakes up and deals with the real problem here, which is Iran. And let me just tell you, the Iranian people are dying for us to deal with the Iranian regime. They are begging for us to deal with the Iranian regime.
Of course, not to forget there's this one force, controlling our world today. Last time we interviewed you, you weren't so positive about the amounts of anti-Semitism around the world. It's also a trend that we were speaking about a lot this year. Do you see any change or improvement in those areas?
Well, the only thing that I think has the good to come out of this is that now we know who everybody is. For the last 20 years, they've been trying to trick us or dupe us into thinking that anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. And of course, most of us here in Israel knew that it was. But in the West, especially with young, vulnerable Jewish kids who would go into universities, they would be given an option. If you're a Zionist, then you're anti-human rights. That's what they would be told. Young Jewish kids from good Jewish homes would be in university, they would be confused, and they would side against their own people because they bought into this, they were duped into this. Today, everything's clear. We now know that all these people are anti-Semitic. They've made it very clear. The administration of the best universities in the US have made it clear that they have not and will not protect their Jewish students. And so Jewish students and families now are realizing that their kids are not safe in Ivy League universities and other universities in the US. And so if we're finishing this year with one thing is that we now see the truth, in the face. And yes, that is what this war has brought out. The anti-Semites that were there all along have been smoked out and have shown their true colors.
Flora always saying the most important things. Thank you so much for joining us today, and Happy New Year as much as possible.
Thank you, and we pray for our hostages to come home, all our soldiers home safely, and defeat our enemy. Happy New Year.
Thank you very much. Israel's war cabinet has greenlit Mossad chief David Barnea to advance with the Qatari proposal for the release of Israeli hostages from Hamas in Gaza. The proposed deal is complex and may take a long time. ILTV's William Sharon with the details.
Israel's war cabinet has granted approval to Mossad chief David Barnea to advance with the Qatari proposal amid at securing the release of hostages in Gaza. The proposal involves the release of 40 to 50 hostages in exchange for a temporary ceasefire lasting a few weeks. While both Israel and Hamas had previously struggled to find common ground, there are indications that Hamas is now agreeing in principle to resume negotiations. Looking ahead, the war cabinet convened today for further discussions on the hostage deal. Israeli officials, however, approach this development cautiously, emphasizing the need for Hamas to demonstrate sincerity. The reported positive message from Qatar is seen as a preliminary step, with officials awaiting concrete details. The proposed deal, advocated by Mossad chief David Barnea, contemplates the release hostages, including women, individuals over 60, and those with severe medical conditions. In return, Israel would pause military operations in Gaza for up to 1 month and release a number of Palestinian security prisoners. Hamas had previously insisted on a permanent ceasefire before considering any hostage release. An Israeli source linked to the negotiation process to moving from the freezer to the coldest shelf in the refrigerator, emphasizing the complexity of dealing with Hamas. Qatari mediators are exploring a more intricate deal, potentially combining a political settlement with a complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza, a demand Israel has thus far resisted. The situation further complicated by the hovering experiences of hostages, such as Maya Shem, who over the weekend recounted her ordeal after being released and said, "I experienced hell. There are no innocent civilians in Gaza." Shem, who is a French-Israeli dual national, was one of the 105 hostages freed during a Qatari negotiated temporary ceasefire last month. An additional 129 people are believed to remain in Hamas captivity, including 23 bodies. 4 hostages were released prior to that, and 1 was rescued by troops. The bodies of 11 hostages have also been recovered.
Experience the power of truth with ILTV News. If you're looking for quality content and captivating visuals, join our news community and become an integral part of our team as we embark on a mission to unveil the real Israel, dismantling the web of lies and misinformation that surround reporting on Israel. By subscribing to ILTV News, you will not only have access to the latest updates, but you will also amplify our message, creating a ripple effect that carries the truth far and wide. Subscribe today and help reshape the narrative. Available on the web, Android, and Apple.
Far to the north on the Syrian-Iraqi border, an alleged Israeli airstrike reportedly killed Syrian, Lebanese, Iraqi, and Iranian combatants involved in attacks against Israel. The strike came amid a direct warning from Prime Minister Netanyahu to Iran. And ILTV's Steve Leibovich reports.
בגבול הצפון אנחנו מנחיתים מהלומות קשות נגד חיזבאללה, מחסלים מחבלים רבים, משמידים יכולות של האויב. אישרנו תוכניות מבצעיות להמשך הלחימה. אם חיזבאללה ירחיב את המלחמה, הוא יספוג מכות שהוא לא חלם עליהן. וכך גם איראן.
The warfare of Hezbollah in Lebanon is supplied by Iran, and much of the weaponry is delivered via allies in Iraq and Syria. It's that supply line that was allegedly struck this morning with deadly force. According to a Syrian monitoring group, the dead in the pre-dawn strikes include 5 Syrians, 4 Lebanese, 6 Iraqis, and 8 Iranians, all combatants tied to militias attacking Israel and their Iranian facilitators. The strikes targeted military positions in Al-Bul Kamal and its surrounding Deir ez-Zor province. A weapons shipment from Iraq and an ammunition warehouse were hit. Israel rarely comments on individual strikes targeting Syria, but it has repeatedly said it will not allow Iran, which backs Assad's government in Syria, to expand its presence there. While there was no confirmation from Israel, there was a denial from the U.S., which said that it did not conduct overnight strikes. The U.S. did confirm that a commercial container ship was struck by a missile while sailing through the Red Sea, the first successful Houthi attack launched from Yemen since the launch of an international coalition to patrol the key waterway 10 days ago. The U.S. Central Command says that the Maersk Hangzhou container ship was hit while being escorted by the USS Gravely warship. The warship shot down 2 ballistic missiles while responding to the distress call. The Iran-backed Houthi rebels have carried out nearly 24 attacks on merchant vessels in a bid to choke traffic traversing the key Bab el-Mandeb Strait connecting the Red Sea to the Indian Ocean.
The IDF announced the deaths of soldiers killed during fighting in the Gaza Strip over the weekend and another who succumbed to his wounds from earlier fighting. The total of slain troops since the start of the ground offensive against Hamas is now 172. Master Sergeant Reserves Konstantin Sushko, 30, of the Combat Engineering Corps 7086th Battalion from Tel Aviv. Sushko was killed in central Gaza over the weekend during a battle that seriously wounded another reservist. Captain Harel Itach, 22, a team commander in the Givati Brigade's reconnaissance unit from Netanya. Itach was seriously wounded last week in southern Gaza and succumbed to his wounds over the weekend. Sergeant Major Reserves Eliraz Gabay, 37, fighter in the Iftach Brigade from Petah Tikva, fell in battle in central Gaza. And Sergeant First Class Reserves Liav Saada, 23, fighter in the Combat Engineering Corps from Tiberias, fell in battle in northern Gaza. May their memory be blessed forever. And now we're joined by Mirit Hoffman, spokeswoman for Mothers of Combat Soldiers, or Imaot Lochamim, who says it is essential that the lives of IDF soldiers are prioritized, giving them all the backup they need. Mirit, good to have you. What can you tell us?
Thank you so much.
It's our pleasure. And I really...
Sorry, thank you so much for having me. I'm a little bit nervous, so you'll have to... First of all, before I start, I'd like to send our condolences to all the families whose loved ones have fallen in battle, and a refuah shlema to all those injured and wounded. We are the mothers of IDF combat soldiers who are fighting on the front lines, whether it's at the moment up north in Yosh or in the Gaza Strip. We're very, very proud of our soldiers and who left families, who left children, who left their jobs in order to protect their homes in our country. And before I start about our mission, I'd like to take advantage of this platform, if I may, to send full support to the IDF in this mission. We back them up in everything that they do. Unfortunately, the press does not give them enough credit, and we want to salute them here to the brave soldiers and state our enormous gratitude and our thanks. We're very, very proud of their accomplishments, and we appreciate all their hard work. It's due to them that we're able to sit here in the studio and actually talk to you. So, and also very important that we state that we also fully support the government in its decision to go to war and not to stop until Hamas is eradicated. Now, regarding our goal, our message is very simple. Our soldiers' lives have to be first and foremost and prioritized over those of the enemy. And we want to make sure the government does everything it can when prosecuting this war in order to do that. We understand war is dangerous and our sons are risking their lives every day on the front lines, and we accept that. But what we will not accept is to put them in even more harm's way for other reasons, such as protecting the lives of the people living in Gaza. That's not what the soldiers are there for. That's Hamas's job. Hamas is using them as human shields, and we shouldn't be the ones having to deal with that.
Mirit, what does a day in your life really at the organization look like? I mean, what do you do in your everyday? And I know you've been vocal about the U.S. administration really limiting your activities, limiting the soldiers' activities. How do you deal with that in the everyday life?
Okay, so we're trying to get this out through various channels. We have government relations. We're lobbying and advocating our position in the Knesset. We meet with the Israeli Knesset MPs, with the decision makers in the government to ensure that our voices are heard loud and clear, our concerns and requests, and that they should be taken in consideration and implemented. We have a tent opposite the Knesset where we meet with Knesset MPs that come and talk to us there. Last Wednesday, we had a lot of MPs that came to discuss this with us. us, and then they take our voice and bring it into the Knesset. We have media outlets through Israel and abroad, such as yourselves. Thank you very much for hosting me here, to spread our word, and working relations with foreign organizations, diplomats, and ambassadors.
Mirit, and what made you really want to become a spokesperson for an organization like this? I mean, on a more personal note, do you have soldiers of your own at home?
So that is actually the easiest question. In my life, I'm a lawyer. I'm actually an elder law lawyer. My son is a paratrooper in Sanchanim. He's been called for Miluim since October 7th, and he has been in Gaza for the last 3 weeks. I've spoken to him once during those last 3 weeks. And he, like all the other soldiers, are fighting really hard on the battlefield. And I found that the least I can do is fight from here to make sure that he and all the combat soldiers get all the backup and all the optimal conditions in order to win this war. I am honored to be part of this organization, and we're all working extremely hard to make sure that this is the case. I just want to state that, I have one son who's in the battlefield. We have mothers who have like 4 children in Gaza right now. All of us are doing this as a volunteer job. We all have other jobs, and we all feel that this is, something that we should do to help our sons.
Mirit, and we're definitely joining your prayers that your son will come back home really fast and safely. Thank you so much for joining us today, and keep on the great work.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And in between all the hardships, there were some incredible stories coming from Israel this year, reuniting us all. And joining us now is our Devo Klein. Devo, surprise us. What are your top stories for this past year?
Right, so to start off, it does feel a little bit odd talking about, pre-October 7th. But we did have some great stories, and I want to kick this list off with the incredible, wickedly talented Noa Kirel, the Israeli superstar who represented Israel in the Eurovision Song Contest 2023. She represented us in Liverpool in the UK, and she had an incredible performance, I might add. She did come with third. I think that a lot of Israelis were a little bit upset about that, but respectfully, this is, a global, international competition. I think 3 is very respectable. I know, you're a Eurovision fan yourself.
I always want to speak when it comes to Eurovision. I'm a big Eurovision fan. Our viewers get to know that now, and I think that it made me really happy because this Eurovision really reunited us all around one cause. I'm watching Eurovision since I'm like 8, and now the whole country reunited that day to watch Noa Kirel. It's a very long broadcast, but they still made it, and they watched her.
I agree.
What's your second story?
I agree. So actually another cause for unification. In May to June, we had the Mundialito, where our U20 soccer team, our Israeli national soccer team, came home with third place like Kirel. Also in sports, we have our Israeli flag football national team. Our U17 boys who flew to a tournament in Italy came back with the gold. Now, one of the reasons why I love this story is because the team actually refused to play on Shabbos, on the Sabbath. They had scheduled games for them. They decided they weren't going to show up, and they still took the championship, which I think is absolutely incredible.
So before you continue, I really want to ask you, because football is really your thing. Mm-hmm. That's right. And I want to ask you, how do we make football something big and known here in Israel, like soccer? Because this is really like a soccer and also basketball country, I can say. How do we make football as big here?
That's a great question. So there's obviously broadcasts. All the European championships and the international championships are always broadcast. You can always turn on your phone and tune in. And there's more than just viewership. If you want to play, you can also be a player. It's super easy in this country. And just being involved in the sport, I think in general, is a good way to get in. And just another on my list, I have the Red Line in Tel Aviv, the light rail in Tel Aviv opening up. This is a huge step forward for public transportation in Tel Aviv. It really connects the larger Tel Aviv metropolitan area. Definitely so does. A very big one.
And we'll add, because we have to end now, we'll add one more thing that I think was like the really big sign of the war, right. Something that really was the big thing of the war. We were all united. And I think that that's the major thing. Want to say anything about it?
Of course. I think it's difficult that we had to get to such a low point in order to realize that. But ever since then, it's been upwards. And I think that the unity is so heartwarming, and people just flowing south to help agricultural plants, and it's just incredible.
and working together and seeing all these things. Deborah, thank you so much for joining us today. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, Amit.
Hi, this is Joel Rosenberg, editor of All Israel News. Sign up for our free daily email for the latest news from Jerusalem. Go to allisrael.com.
And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Mostly clear skies are expected tonight throughout the country, with temperatures at lows of around 12 degrees Celsius or 51 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow, partly cloudy skies and cool temperatures set to reach highs of only 18 degrees Celsius or 76 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's all for today's news. For more updates from Israel on all your devices, check out our ILTV channel, subscribe to our ILTV newsletter, and of course, do not forget to check out our new and improved website, ILTV.tv, with all the latest news from the heart of the State of Israel. I'm Amit Harari. Happy, successful, and safe New Year, and thank you so much for watching.